Lately, I'm seeing a lot of complaints from newcomers that are trying to get into IT, that they have problems really finding that very first job in information technology. They are complaining that they don't get interviews, there are not that many jobs out there. They're just frustrated that they spent some time getting some certifications and they're just not getting that phone call for a job interview and potentially land that job. So why is that? What is the situation, and what do you need to know that can make a difference for you so that you can land your very first job in information technology? So when I talk to people or read the different discussions on Reddit or in other online forums, they're just saying it's like the old way doesn't work anymore. A certification just doesn't open the door. You cannot land your very first job anymore. It's just insane. And then when you apply somewhere, there's like 200, 300, 400, 500 people that already have applied to that job, even though that job posting is just open for a couple hours, as an example. So, and yeah, that can be frustrating if you really just look at it from the surface and you don't really look at it in more detail. And that's really where I feel like, well, the old-fashioned way where you have certifications and you build up your credentials, it still works. So, but if you do what everyone else does, and if you apply the same way everyone else applies for a job, then I don't think you will see a significant success with that type of application. So let's look at that in more detail. So first of all, if you want to get into IT or any new job, you have to build up knowledge, you have to build up skill set, you have to build up a set of credentials that makes it really interesting for a hiring manager to look at you and to consider you for a job. So that's the first thing. So how do you do this? If you go through college and you have the right college degree, you're already a step ahead. But for somebody that gets an IT certification or several IT certifications, that story is, I want to say, different, because that's where you have to build up the credibility that you have the knowledge. And just because you have some certifications under your belt doesn't mean you're qualified for a job. So it's just like, let's have that expectation at the right place. You might not be qualified for the job. You can land a job with IT certifications, but your expectation needs to be a little lower and you need to work a little harder to get to that point. And that's another thing. Yes, you have to spend a lot of effort to apply for jobs and not just use one of those lazy application automation tools to blast out applications all across the internet in a matter of minutes, because that is what everyone does. And yeah, everyone doesn't get the job. There are a few chosen individuals that land the job, that get a phone call for a pre-screen and potentially land an interview. And I would say, that's my guess, not many of those use those automated tools. So if they use the automated tools, they put a little more effort behind it. Because if you just send a generic resume and a generic cover letter to any type of job opening, yeah, your results will be generic. In most cases, that means you're not getting the job. So that's really an expectation. If you think that automation helps you to land a job, it can. But if you just use the lazy way to apply without putting additional effort in, you will not land a job. Don't get me wrong, IT and automation, yes, you want to use automation once you work in IT for your job tasks and everything else. But for applying for a job, it requires a little more than just submitting a Word document or PDF document and run it through one of those tools and apply everywhere. So that's really change your way how you apply for jobs, and potentially you will see more results. So that's one important factor. Don't be frustrated that there are 200, 300, 500 other applicants. It's like, if you are the hiring manager, you are looking for the right person. And yeah, those mass applications that people send out is usually not enough, or are usually not enough to showcase that. Which brings me to the next point. Those applications that are being sent out via automation, or even if you do it by hand, they go into an applicant tracking system. So that's really where you have the first barrier that you need to overcome. And the applicant tracking systems are in place so that they can filter out the resumes that are not a good match or that don't meet the hiring expectations that have been defined on the back end. And they only process those applications that seem to be a good match. And only those applications make it to the recruiter or the hiring manager. So that's another reason why you need to customize your application. And with customization, I mean not just change a few words here and there. There's a lot more. You really need to write an individual cover letter if a cover letter is part of that application. And you need to rewrite every job experience or your skill set in your resume to be as close as possible to the requirements. And that doesn't mean you just copy a few words from left to the right, from one paragraph to another, and you just dump a whole bunch of keywords into an application just to meet a certain percentage that you have picked up somewhere that somebody said you need to have. So that's not how it works. You really need to read the job description multiple times and then pay attention to what is really required. And have reasonable expectations. If you have zero job experience in IT and you apply for a job that requires 2 or 3 years of experience, how do you showcase that you have the skill set to meet that specific requirement? So if you don't have job experience, you need to find another way to showcase that you have what it takes, be it volunteering with an organization, a church, or whatever else. That's an important part that you need to bring into your resume and showcase it correctly, not just a 1 or 2 sentence paragraph. So there are ways how to do this, and yeah, it's not easy, and times change too. So you have to be really creative so that you can showcase that. Otherwise, if you apply just for the entry-level jobs, again, you're competing with hundreds of people that use automated tools to submit their application and are just hoping to get potentially chosen. If you spend a little more effort per application, you will see better results. And if you spend even more effort per application, you will definitely land a few calls, be it just a pre-screen from the recruiter, but eventually you learn what the recruiters want to know from you. They will ask questions, and very often you can tell with the responses that you give and how they respond back to you if that was a good answer that you gave them or it was a bad one. But you need to track this. You need to keep track of these items, and really after each application where you potentially had some exposure to a pre-screen, write everything down. Identify what worked and what didn't work. If you don't spend time analyzing this, your success rate will be very low. For people that spend the time doing this, their success rate will slowly go up. Also, if you just slap 1 or 2 IT certifications on your resume, that is not enough. You need to showcase that you are driven, that you want more. So 1 or 2 certifications is a start. That's when you start applying for jobs. But when you apply for jobs in that moment, that's collecting data. That's really what you want to do. It's like you cannot have the expectation that 1 or 2 certifications get you that job. You are starting to collect data, and then you need to work with that data. And data plays an important role in almost any job in information technology. So it's a skill set that you learn as you go through the application process, and do not become frustrated that after 150 applications, you barely have anything to show for. But I'm pretty sure in those 150 applications, if you do it really the way I recommended you to do it, you will have some data that you can work with. I mentioned before I saw some discussions on Reddit and in other forums, and to people I talked to that reach out to me through my YouTube channel. And often the opinion that I'm hearing is that, yeah, when you applied, so meaning me, when I got into IT, it was so much easier. Well, let me tell you how I got into IT, and also how I made a career change just a few years ago, from becoming an individual contributor to IT manager, and then worked my way up in IT management. So let me just go back a long time back. So I know you will say, this is old school, this is the old way, it doesn't work anymore, but hear me out. So when I got into information technology, it was 1998. I started with Microsoft certifications, and different certifications compared to today, but very similar. You can pick up a Microsoft certification today and then add additional certifications onto that to build up your credentials. And that's what I did. I started with 1 Microsoft certification. Within a few months, I added 2 or 3 more, and to work my way up to have an entire Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer title at the very end. But that was a process, and I used that to showcase that in my resume. So it's not just showing that I have 2 certifications. I also laid out what my plan is for the next certification, so that there's a timeline in there. And that alone already shows that there is a plan behind it. It's not just I'm throwing darts at the wall and hope that I hit something. No, there was a detailed plan behind it. When I finally started applying for jobs, I didn't know what to expect. So I used every job interview, every exposure I had when I talked to somebody on the phone, and I kept track of what were they asking, what were they looking for, what did I have or what did I not have, and where did the interview go off the path that I lost the opportunity. And during that time, I applied probably 200, 250 times. And this was in the old days where there was no automation. You had to do it by hand. I often had to mail an application. Very often I had to fax an application, so I bought a fax machine. And very few companies at that time allowed me to upload something electronically. So very different times, more effort involved. So you had to make really do with what you had back then. And again, this requires effort. And if you think this is easy today, no, it's not easy. If you use tools to make it easy, use them in a smart way. Don't just blast out an application. So you have to put in effort and just think about it. If everyone just puts in 50% and expects 100% result, that's not going to work. So you have to do more than your competition, because those entry-level jobs, well, for one, some of those are disappearing, so there might be a smaller number, who knows, but you're competing with people. And if you walk the extra mile, if you put the additional 10, 15, 20% in, you will have a better success rate compared to those people that just blast out applications and hope to land a job. So back then I put in a lot of effort and it finally worked out. Now fast forward. In 2015, I had a role as an IT systems administrator, as a lead systems administrator was my title. So, and I liked the type of work. I had chosen this specific role so that I could still have some hands-on work and also some IT management. And just to get to learn IT management and really see if that's something that I like. And I liked it, and I decided IT management is where I want to be. So in 2015, I started working towards that. So I took a certification, the ITIL Foundation certification, to build up my credentials and to open the door to potential interviews. Then I applied for jobs everywhere except for where I wanted to be physically. I had 2 target areas that I used. I was willing to move from Colorado to California. So I did not apply for jobs in Colorado. I did not apply for jobs in Southern California where I wanted to be. But I applied for jobs everywhere else. And then I started tracking the data. And I had interviews, I had pre-screens, I had several phone interviews where they invited me to come to their offices, and I had applied with a local address to each of these companies. So I was a little creative, I want to say, in how I applied, because I wanted to learn what were they asking for, what do I have to look at to be successful when my dream job comes along. So with that creativity, I collected a lot of data. Then the next item that I looked at were the applicant tracking systems. I mentioned those before. Yes, you have to put in keywords, you have to customize your application, but you know what? I took it a step further. When you apply, I want to say by hand, to an applicant tracking system like Workday or Taleo or whatever else they're called these days, very often you upload your resume, the system processes your resume and then spits out what it thinks it should look like. So what I did, I found companies that use different applicant tracking systems and applied for jobs. And then I waited to see when I applied, okay, how many corrections do I have to make until the resume is correctly in the system? The idea behind it is, if I send my resume and then it requires a lot of change to make the resume appear correctly, the format of my resume is not correct. It's not ideal for that applicant tracking system. And yes, that takes time to fix that. So that's time I didn't want to spend. So I prepared a resume template for each of the different applicant tracking systems that I could identify back then. So be it Workday, be it Taleo, be it I think ADP has one, and. So I think I had 7 or 8 different resume templates, one for each of these applicant tracking systems. And that cut down significantly on the time I had to spend to apply for a job. So here you see where I want to say automation or preparation helps you to be more efficient. So with that, I had much more success. And then from there, I took it a step further, all the way until I started landing job interviews in person in those areas where I wanted to be. So in the end, I would say I identified, or I ended up with about 8 jobs that I really liked to have. Out of those 8 jobs, I received about, and the job interviews, I received about 5 actual job offers. And from those job offers, I was able to eliminate more because during the interview process, I learned more about those companies and identified that I do not want to work for that manager or for that company. So in the end, I landed the job that really helped me to catapult not just into IT management, but to do a lot of exciting work and move into the position of head of IT that I'm currently am. So those are just the examples from when I got into IT and when I changed careers within information technology. And yes, I got this job that I mentioned in IT management in 2017. So yes, it's about 7 years ago. Things have changed a little bit since then, but overall the process itself still works. And if you're telling me it doesn't work, I really want to hear from you. Have you done all the related work to do more than the competition? Are you continuing to educate yourself? Are you analyzing the data that you collect? Or are you just like, oh, I didn't get this job, moving on? So that's really what I would like to hear from you. And maybe you put it down into the comments and just let me know. What is your approach and why are you not getting a job? During the entire process, especially when I got into information technology and then later on when I switched into IT management, I again was looking for, okay, what am I saying in an interview that potentially, pisses off the other person that they don't want to hire me? So that's an important part, and then you can work on that and practice. This is all part of the deal. So, and that could really be why you're not getting a job. And I mentioned this earlier. There's a lot of competition for the lower hanging fruit jobs, for entry-level jobs. You have a significantly larger number of competitors. If you do what your competitors do, what are you expecting? So average effort, average results. And in a job search, that means you have to apply for many more jobs compared to being prepared, being able to put in that additional effort so that you can land that job. And yes, it will take time. It still takes time even if you think you have a head start because now you follow my advice. This is not something that just materializes over a couple of weeks or a month or two. And you need to use your time wisely. So educate yourself and plan for it. And sometimes maybe you get a job offer and it's like, oh, they're not paying very well. Maybe I should not take that job. It's like, okay, how many chances do you want to let go by until you have that first job that pays exactly what you're looking for? So my recommendation would be is put money on the side. Maybe apply for the jobs that have a really low hourly rate or low salary. A lot of your competitors might skip those jobs because it's not enough pay. But if you save up some money before that you can substitute some of that missing salary in the beginning, it could be an opportunity because all you need is that first job on your resume that you work in IT. After 6 to 9 months with additional education and building up your skill set, you can apply again for other jobs and then move into a job that pays appropriately, plus you get a much bigger bump up. So this requires preparation, this requires planning. And that's really my advice. Don't just follow a boot camp or something and it's like, okay, I have those 2 certifications. Why am I not getting a job? So there is more to it. And this is a project. This is not just a little effort that you put on the side after you work at the grocery store or in an office. You have to add more work hours to your day. And that additional work means preparing, learning, finding out what works, what doesn't. And then there are the old-fashioned ways to find a job. Find a good recruiter and talk to recruiters. There's a lot of recruiters out there that turns out to be, they're really good and they have your best interest in mind. And they don't just dump you into a job and then leave you. I have recruiters that I have worked with over the last 10, 15 years. And if they have something for me, they reach out and I'm often telling them, no, I'm happy where I am. I'm not looking right now, but they send an email, hey, Happy New Year, or whatever it is, happy birthday if they know my birthday. But recruiters have, good recruiters, should have a number in your contact list so that you can reach out. Networking with peers is also a very important part, and that's what a lot of people forget because it takes time. Networking is important. You cannot just, hey Joe, I need a job at your company, can you help me? I mean, this is not networking. So really think about what else can you do other than just applying online. Go to, I want to say, user group meetups. Talk to vendors in the area that often have like maybe quarterly events where you can go to. Even just going to those events or to a conference can open the door where you just talk shop with people and yeah, maybe impress somebody enough that, hey, I think I met this guy here. Yeah, I have his phone number here. Let's see. He seemed to be very interested in working for XYZ company and so on. You get the idea. So there's much more than just blasting out resumes through an automated system to land a job. Again, if you just put in little effort, the results will be non-existent. So that's my 2 cents in regards to why you cannot land a job in information technology these days. And yeah, there might be a little bit related to that the old way doesn't work anymore. But if you just complain, it doesn't change anything. If you become proactive and maybe spend more time and ask more experienced people or talk to hiring managers outside of that framework when you apply for a job, because you have neighbors where you live potentially, I mean, talk to those people. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so as well. And then I would say I see you next time in my next video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.